and Scrutiny panel. It's also worth noting that the Invest Thanet board, which has been engaged with throughout the development of the strategy, reiterated their support for the Council's draft economic growth strategy at a recent meeting. The vision set out in the strategy is that Thanet is a great place to live, work and invest, rivaling its counterparts across the UK. Its economy will grow quickly in both relative and absolute terms. To remind everyone, the consultants recommended that the vision is underpinned by two strands: foundational priorities and transformational initiatives. The foundational priorities are working with education providers to improve skills, supporting new and small businesses in the district through managed workspace and business support, ensuring major employment sites in Thanet are managed and promoted effectively, and working with local partners to ensure that the visitor economy continues to evolve. The transformation initiatives provide the scope to effect long-term change, but require more than the Council to deliver. They are developing the Port of Ramsgate, focusing on and supporting the business sector clusters, including agri-tech, high value, and the creative industries, manufacturing and engineering. Promoting Thanet's culture and leisure, designing enterprise into communities and developing long-term feasibility modelling for Margate, Broadstairs and Ramsgate. The strategy is ambitious and will require the Council to work with a range of partners to realise its full potential. The consultants suggested a partnership approach to the management of the strategy, which officers will develop once the strategy has been adopted with a revised Invest Thanet board. The Council is better resourcing itself to help deliver this. A new Head of Service for Growth and Development will oversee an economic development team that will include managers with a sector focus and officers with a place-based focus. Working with me as the portfolio holder and the director of this team will be the driving force for the delivery of the strategy. I recommend that the economic growth strategy be adopted by Cabinet.
Thank you. Our proposition, I have a seconder. That's Councillor Crowe-Brown. And speaking under 21, item 5, firstly, Councillor Bayford, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I wish this strategy well because we desperately need it as a district. But my concern about it is that, you know, over the years we've seen a lot of these strategies come and go, and I'm afraid that this one has some of the hallmarks that we've seen before. Definitely has the fingerprints of consultants all over it to me. It's full of jargon. I find myself reading it, and whilst I understand the meaning of the individual words, I don't know what they mean when they're strung together. I'm not quite sure what work with other partners across the skills ecosystem means. And, you know, and maybe I'll understand a bit better, but, you know, foundational priorities and transformational initiatives, you know, I'm not sure that I can tell one from the other, but I'm sure that'll become clearer. You know, and at the end of the day, I see this, I can get the gist of it. It seems like a hell of a lot of work involved in here, but I don't actually see much explanation of how it's going to get done. So one of the things I think would be very useful is if the team, say, just looked at the first 6 months, picked out the things that can be done that would make the most difference most quickly, and in plain English said what was going to be done, who was going to do it, who they're going to do it with, and where they're going to do it. Because that way we can look at something and we say, yeah, that's a good idea, and we can look and wait for the results to come and see the progress of it. What I don't want to happen with this is that we accept this tonight, or you accept this tonight, and it does just sit there as a document that doesn't have much referral made back to it. And even if it did refer back to it, I'm not sure how useful it is because of the sort of strange jargon that it's written in. We need this to be turned into a real live action plan that will actually deliver. And I hope that you do, really do.
Thank you, Councillor. I take on board what you've said and broadly absolutely agree with you that this is the foundation, but it's not the actual operation of the strategy that we need to work. That can only be put together once this has passed Cabinet. And I think our new head of service starts in January, and then the team will be put together and we will be obviously consulting with all members on the best way forward. But I agree with you, we need to be very focused on individual operative work and to monitor that most closely. Thank you for your comment.
Cllr Savage, please.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Chair. Well, that was Mr. Hard. I'm going to be Mr. Nice. I would like to say first that I respect the amount of work and effort that has gone into this growth strategy for Thanet, and I welcome it, of course, as I'm sure we all do in a way. It would be churlish of me to be too critical over the abundance of sound bites and overemphasis on Thanet's seaside tourist and cultural attractions, which, of course, all of us, I think, are guilty of at some point or the other. There are, however, of course, a number of comments I would like to make, having looked at it in a certain amount of detail. Firstly, in the baseline data section on page 60, some of the data provided by the Office of National Statistics, ONS, and the Oxford Economic East of England Forecasting Model, that's the EEFM, all these acronyms, although mildly upbeat about Thanet's employment prospects, do state based on business as usual. But of course Brexit is an unknown quantity. However, I presume UKIP must realise there could be little comfort here in consequence if things go the wrong way. Secondly, throughout the document, much is made of Thanet's proximity to London and Europe. I would question this, not least because it is a problem I regularly face personally. To London assumes HS1 and Manston Parkway, which we haven't got. To Europe, well, the proximity is only geographical, and I'll tell you why. Much is made of developing Ramsgate Port in this guide, which in principle seems a good idea. But access to Europe is already well covered by Dover, and it is extremely unlikely a ferry service like Sally back in the 80s could be re-established now the Channel Tunnel exists. Thanet, located on a peninsula, is actually remote for business purposes. This is because even assuming a couple of hours by ferry to the continent, this is only to Calais, whereas access to all other parts of Europe is readily available from Heathrow, Gatwick, Luton and Stansted, and in the same time to any part of Europe. This is why a re-established Manston Airport would be a far better bet to promote business rather than just looking at Ramsgate Port, where the emphasis is. Rather than mass housing and a freight hub for Ramsgate Port, things that turn up from the docks. I move on. I'm pleased to say as a consideration given to delivery, but it would seem the proposed oversight board is merely Invest Thanet with a different name. Page 56 states the council resourcing is to be strengthened by 2 sector growth managers, and it doesn't exactly say how many area development managers. I presume this staff to be recruited, and so we're going to have staff just running round and round organising meetings and sort of chairing them and the like. With respect to the monitoring of progress section, UKIP will have to ensure it is still around in 2031 to take credit, but more likely otherwise when the target is not met. But I admire and respect the optimism. All in all, it's a fair bit of work, totally misplaced, I would put, by putting Ramsgate Port ahead of Manston Airport as an economic driver for local business. I can only assume this is because UKIP are fully discounting Manston's future despite the electoral pledge. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. How very kind of you. I will try and cover as many of those as I can. Regarding Brexit, I think that will not have a particular impact on this area. It will do when it happens, possibly in terms of duty-free business coming out of the port. I think that a number of people have alerted me to the fact that that could very well take off, but that's only a small part of what we do here. But otherwise, I don't think it's going to make a great deal of difference to us in that context, not to the people of Thanet. Although nationally, I think overall it will probably end up tipping and then going on and doing extremely well, and we will be part of that process. Regarding proximity to London and Europe, whether we like it or not, we have a very good train service already, fast train service to London, which has in fact produced more people moving down here. There's the perception that that's a bad thing. I don't think it is, because people move down here with their families, they spend their money down here, and hopefully they will start working from home, build new small businesses. So I can't see a downside to that particularly, except possibly in property values for people who are trying to buy homes. Regarding UKIP and the credit, quite frankly, that's beyond my horizon. I'm only interested in the people of Eastcliff and in Thanet District Council overall, and politics do not come into that in the faintest way. Regarding Manston, Manston and the fact that the port was put at number 1 on the report, that was the recommendation of the consultants, and we saw no glaring reason to change that. Manston is a separate issue that I don't propose to deal with here.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you very much for trying to seek out those employment indicators for me. If they're not available, well, they're not available. But thank you for trying anyway, Councillor. I know you said this is a living document, but however, there is, I think, a factual error contained within the document, which is quite pertinent. As we're just about to go into the local plan consultation, if you look on the bottom of page 5 of the plan, it says there's an additional 16,000 dwellings in the local plan. Well, in actual fact, there isn't. There's 17,140 is the headline figure, but I think the actual increase in the local plan that's required is only about 12,000. I have the figures here. It's, as I say, the headline figure is 17,140, but there's been completions since 2011 of 1,555. There's extant planning permissions of 3,017, and the empty homes which currently exist is 540, which brings it down to about 12,000. Because the 16,000 you mentioned, you go on to extrapolate how many extra people there will be in Thanet for those to actually populate those houses. So I think it's for balance, as we are about to go into consultation on the local plan, I think the economic regeneration plan should match up with the numbers, particularly of the dwellings within Thanet and the local plan. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Campbell. You're quite correct. There seems to be some confusion over the final numbers, something we discussed when discussing the local plan this afternoon, and we need to have clarification on that, and I apologise for any confusion. We will get back to all members with a clarification on those points.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think the summary of our discussion this afternoon was that we would have that clarification in place for the scrutiny panel discussion of the local plan numbers on Monday evening, so that any corrections need to be made there, and all the other documents will flow from that, and the information that is accepted within it. Okay, so a proposal and a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you. Item number 6 this evening, Budget Monitoring Report number 2 for financial year 26.